Well, Seth, I want to say, first of all, thank you very much for calling in, being a new listener and sharing your story. And also, thank you for your service to your community in terms of law enforcement. Folks in law enforcement keep us safe, and we appreciate all they do. So thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening to The Campfire. Dave from Illinois is joining us. He has been listening for a couple of years, found us on iTunes, started with the Paranormal Podcast and checked out The Campfire, and he's here now sharing his story. This is one about a very interesting, shall we say, anniversary dinner. Dave, welcome to the program. Please tell us what happened.
Well, this was about 5 years ago. My wife and I were just dating for a couple of weeks at this time, and her parents invited me and her sister's then boyfriend to join them for their anniversary dinner at the Lemp Mansion in St. Louis, Missouri. And the Lemp Mansion is notorious in St. Louis for being having quite a tragic history, which I didn't know all of it at the time. I just knew supposedly that it was haunted, and that was pretty much it. Mm-hmm. So we went to dinner, and after we ordered the food, the four of us kids decided to go and just kind of explore and take a look around. So we went up to the second floor, which was the master bedroom, and we all kind of felt somewhat uneasy. Something was there watching us, even though we were the only ones in the room. And I actually felt like almost a tingling sensation on the back left of my head, almost like kind of like when your foot falls asleep and you get the pins and needles.
Right, sure. But
it was like at the back left side of my head. So I thought that was a little odd. And then we continued to look around and made our way up to the third floor. Mm-hmm. And as soon as we got up to the third floor and stepped off of the stairs, all four of us felt like something just wasn't right. Just something was off. Right. So we looked around, and there's really nothing up on the third floor. There are rooms that can be rented in the mansion to stay overnight. So there's one of those up there, but everything else is just pretty much storage. Right. So we went back down to the dining room on the main floor and had dinner. And then after dinner, we decided to look around a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And we went to what was the family's main bathroom on the second floor. Right. And my sister-in-law actually felt like somebody was standing right behind her, even though the other three of us were inside the bathroom at that point. She was standing in the doorway and felt like somebody was right behind her, and there was nobody there. And then we decided to try and go back up to the third floor again and see if we could figure out what was making us feel so uneasy. And my wife actually couldn't make it past the landing between the second and third floors. And when my sister-in-law and I and her then boyfriend got to the top, we were just overcome with this sense of like sadness and almost like depression. Mm-hmm. And doing some research afterwards in the following week, I found out that the patriarch of the Lemp family, when the brewery was doing well, and his son actually both committed suicide years apart, but both committed suicide in that master bedroom on the second floor. Yes, and they had both shot themselves in the left side of the head.
Oh my goodness!
And that the son, who had committed suicide, had and his wife had a child who was mentally handicapped. And back in those days, it was not as understood as it is now, and not as accepted as it is now. And so supposedly they kept him, locked in his room, which was on the third floor, and he pretty much only had his nurse for company ever. Mm. Mm. And so that kind of explained the feelings of sadness and depression.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just feel that some of these places retain their energy, and this sounds like one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. The the wife of the son that committed suicide is known as the Purple Lady, and there's actually a portrait of her at the top of the stairs leading from the ground floor to the first or the second floor. And it's said that if any women are traveling on that staircase wearing purple, she will actually try and push them down the stairs. And luckily, no one was wearing purple in our group that night. Once we made bed.
Yeah, that could have turned out badly.
Exactly.
Well, Dave, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was quite a story, and I would encourage everybody, if you have any stories, please go to jimharold.com/campfire. That's jimharold.com/campfire, and sign up to tell us what happened to you, because without your stories, like Dave's stories, there is no campfire. Dave, thank you again. Thank you for listening for the last couple of years. And
my pleasure.
Next up on the campfire is Steve. He's a Plus Club member, a big supporter, longtime listener. He's calling from California, and he says that he has an experience from a creepy apartment building that he lived in San Francisco, and we can't wait to hear this story. Steve, welcome to the program. Thanks for your support. Tell us what happened.
Well, Jim, about 10 years ago, I moved into the Tenderloin in San Francisco, and if listeners have never been there, it's a very crowded area of downtown. It was destroyed in 1906 in the earthquake and fire, and the buildings were rebuilt rather hastily. The bricks were sort of recycled from the previous buildings, and, some of the buildings are over 100 years old, as was this building. It was about 5 stories tall, had a thick brick exterior and a wooden interior, and it was noisy. It was filled with lots of families, but it just had this sort of rickety kind of fire trap feel to it. So it was kind of gloomy. Also, there was a vermin issue. There were rats that would crawl in the walls, and you'd be getting ready for bed, and you'd hear a rat scamper across the crawl space over your head. So that took a little bit of getting used to, needless to say. So the building already had this sort of gloomy mood. I had a friend who was a neighbor, and he was meditating one day, and he said the spirit walked into his room, and she was dressed in S&M outfit. She
oh my!
San Francisco, maybe that's appropriate, but she was wearing this leather outfit and harness. And he looked at her and said, "What are you doing here?" And she walked through his closet and disappeared. So I'd heard this story, and I thought the building could be kind of creepy, but I didn't really think that much of it. But one night, I was in bed. I'd just gotten into bed, just turned off the lights, and I sleep on my side, and I was all curled up and ready to go to sleep when I felt a distinct poke on my shoulder. And I was shocked. It felt like somebody was standing right over me and poked me right on the shoulder.
Right.
And I opened my eyes, and I sat up. I was afraid to see somebody. Luckily, I didn't see anybody. But what I did see was a candle that I had left burning. And later I thought about it. I realized that if it wasn't my imagination, now I suppose those kinds of things you can imagine, but I realized that it was the spirit who was looking after the building and didn't like the fact that I left a candle burning, which of course was my mistake. I overlooked it. So I blew it out and went back to sleep and never had another encounter. But, the building, as I said, is a fire trap. It's 5 stories. It has a wooden interior. There are lots of families that live there, lots of kids. It would have been just a tragic disaster if my candle had started a fire. Wow.
So in a way, I guess whatever this was saved you and saved others, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. It was reminding me that I was being irresponsible. It was time to blow the candle out.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. My wife, I have a thing about candles. I'm like, she leaves the room, I'm like, blow it out. I'm paranoid about candles to the point of small arguments. So, well, I got to tell you, were there any other experiences in that, or was that the sole experience for you?
In that building, that was the only experience.
But still, I guess you have other stories that you'd like to share at some point, and we'd be glad to hear them. What I was going to say, though, is that, and I think people always assume that paranormal activity is a bad thing. And in this case, it sounds like it was a very good thing.
Yeah, I definitely felt it was benevolent. And even though I was touched, it didn't feel cold or didn't feel evil. It just felt like somebody poking me on the shoulder. Hey,
take care of this. Mm-hmm. Well, Steve, thank you for all of your support over the years. I'm glad that you've been listening all this time. Hope you'll continue to do so. And thanks for sharing your story on the campfire. And I look forward to hearing those other ones down the road.
All right. Sounds good, Jim. Thanks for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the program tonight as much as I did. A lot of great stories from a lot of great people. I hope you'll contribute yours. Go over to jimharold.com/campfire. That's jimharold.com/campfire to sign up to the campfire. And also, I will say, I know from time to time people will sign up and we don't make connections. They'll forget or I'll call. They'll get confused about the time zones. Something comes up. And I do get a lot of submissions, so sometimes things will fall through the cracks. If you fall into that category and we were going to tape at one point or another and something came up and you couldn't make it, or we didn't make connections, please sign up again, because I certainly want to get your story and I appreciate you contributing. Thank you so much for tuning into the Campfire, and we'll talk to you next time. And in the interim, as always, stay spooky. Bye-bye, everybody.
You've been listening to Jim Harold's Campfire. Tune in again next time for more stories of ordinary people who have experienced extraordinary things.